All right, here we are. Here we go. Hour number 3, Matt Murphy Show. Is that right? Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Hour number 3, Matt Murphy Show. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Just past halftime. Happy to have you with us. Thank you for being a part of the show. For those of you just getting off work, hello, I'm back. You missed me? You missed me? Did you? You missed me? For the last 2 weeks, I have been convalescing, repairing my shoulder through rest and rehabilitation. We got a new shoulder on the 23rd of June. And as I did at the beginning of the show, I want to do it now because so many new listeners in the radio audience, in the audience on Spotify and iHeart, TuneIn, our app at Supertalk 99.7 WTN, and then, of course, the TV side of things. Thank you so much for your kind wishes. Thank you to Chris Hand for filling in for most of the days that I was out. I think Chad Benson was in for at least one of the days that I was out. And thanks to Brian Wilson for allowing Chris to do that by sliding in to the Chris Hand show during the midday. And thanks to all of you once again. I do appreciate your warm wishes. We're back after it. After those 2 weeks. And for those that want to know more about the shoulder, that's coming up in an hour. Any and all of your questions will be answered at about 6:05 this afternoon. Right now, we turn our attention back to the world of politics with our good friend, Congressman Tim Burchett, who joins us on the hotline where we interview people. That is what we call the hotline where we interview people. Hello, Congressman. How are you?
Well, I'm good, brother. Everybody, I'd been putting out on the internet that it was a coup, and you'd been thrown out of. You were in exile in Tahiti, but I guess that didn't pan out very well.
Let me tell you something. On OxyContin, I felt like I was. I felt like I was on a different planet, my friend. I highly encourage 1 or 2 days of that if you're post surgery, but you better get off it quick because I can understand how people get addicted to that stuff.
Oh man, yeah, it's definitely. Yeah.
Let's start in Texas. I mean, obviously, the tragedy there is just unimaginable. We understand what floodwaters can do in the state of Tennessee. We saw it in East Tennessee last year with Hurricane Helene, as well as Western North Carolina. It is so sad, but it is becoming all too commonplace, Tim, that you see jerks online and elsewhere trying to politicize things. What is your response? I asked this of your colleague, Congressman John Rose, earlier today. What is your response to those who are trying to politicize this, claiming that Donald Trump and the Republican Party, by extension, somehow have some responsibility for the tragedy out in Texas because of some of the cuts that we're seeing on the federal level?
Well, where were they when Hurricane Helene hit? You know, I go back during that was Biden's deal, and Trump took over right afterwards and had to clean up that mess. And we're still cleaning it up there. There was an article in a little blurb in the Wall Street Journal. I believe it came out this morning, and it really went through everything about that whole horrible situation. And the Wall Street Journal, honestly, is no friend of Trump's. Obviously, they've kind of been cutting him a lot lately. If I could, I'd like to maybe just read just a little bit of that. It says the National Weather Service issued a flood watch for potential flash flooding in parts of central Texas as early as Thursday afternoon at about 1 a.m. local time on Friday after a storm system stalled over the area and dumped far more rain than had been forecast. A warning that flash floods were imminent was issued. By 4 a.m., a flash flood emergency was issued for the area around Camp Mystic. And they didn't get the little girls out. It's just a tragedy. I guess everybody wants to blame somebody, but Trump's not the issue. It's just nature, and it's I talked to some of I've been in contact with Chip Roy and some others, but they said, I think about 20 years ago they had a similar situation where some of the little girls lost their lives. So it's just it's a very dry area. If you don't understand about rain, go listen to your gutters after a little sprinkle, and you'll see it intensifies the amount. It's amazing how much water falls and where it goes. It's got to go somewhere, and the ground's so hard and dry, it's not going to go in the ground. Then it just intensifies. I mean, that's biblical kind of floods almost. It's in the amount of just a few. I think that's 22 minutes. You had areas raising 15 or 20 feet. And and there's just the rush of that water. There is nothing you can do, and shame on them blaming it on Trump. That's just the horrendous nature of politics. And I'm afraid the far left is is falling victim to that every day. That's all the straws they got to grasp.
No, it is. I mean, it seems like whatever the matter might be, as opposed to sitting down and debating, whatever there is to debate, they just want to go right to the personal ad hominem attacks and orange man evil, and as if that settles the matter, which is where they went after the passage of the big, beautiful bill, which is where I want to turn our attention to next. You're one of the most conservative guys in Congress that I know, Tim. And I know a few of them. I mean, my good friend out of the 6th District out of Alabama, Gary Palmer's incredibly conservative. I mean, but all of you got together, absent Massey and the fellow from Pennsylvania, and you voted for this. I know that you did not vote for it without consternation and conversation amongst your colleagues about what we could have done more to save more in terms of massive government spending. Yet the good, it seemed to me, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it seemed that the good simply outweighed the bad. Is that fair?
That is very fair. I was coming out of a restaurant today, and just numerous people were so complimentary. And this one lady said, "Can I come over and talk to her grandmother?" And she didn't want me, or to her mother. She didn't want to talk to me or her mother. She was trying to blister me in front of her friends and asked me how I could vote for that much more debt. I said, "Ma'am, you're talking about $3 trillion over 10 years. I said, "Where were you the last 4 years when we ran up $12 trillion, $1 trillion every 100 days?" And that's we inherited a incredible economic disaster from the Biden administration, and then all those poor people I'm kicking off Medicaid and Medicare. Nothing could be more false. That is a lie put out by the left. And I said, "Ma'am, where do you get your news?" I said, "Would you get your news?" She said, "Where would you suggest I get my news?" I said, "Nowhere." I said, "Read it and figure it out, that beautiful brain God gave you." I said, "Where do you get your news?" And she said, MSNBC.
Oh, dear.
And I thought to myself, I didn't even know they were still around. But the truth was that she was, and then she started talking about the poor people kicked off. And I said, "Ma'am, all we're talking about is people that are, don't you think people that should work, that can work, should work?" And I said, "We're not talking about a single mom with 2 kids. We're not doing that." I said, "It's just a waste, abuse, and fraud." And I just don't think I think they're so naive about food stamps and other things. And food stamps playing for soft drinks, that's wrong. That is completely wrong. I think they took out the power drinks out of it, but they still couldn't get all the soft drinks. But that's just wrong, and they give it a name, SNAP, so it's not food stamps anymore. I don't have any disrespect or dislike for somebody who's in that situation. But I tell you what I don't like is when I see people dancing around on the internet about how much money they're getting of yours and my money. That makes me angry. That makes me very angry when they should be out getting a dadgum job, and they just teach their kids that generational knowledge of ripping off the government and acting like they're entitled, and they will never come out of it. They will never come out of it. And this ambushed the Democrats and the left, because obviously the base, the people that want something for nothing, are going to vote for them. And dadgummit, this stops it. And not all of them, but not all the Democrats are that way. But I'm just saying, by and large, there's a reason people in the inner city and the projects vote Democrat.
So I want to read you from the X Machine to you and read your response that was made and set up this discussion point, because you wrote on July 3rd, and I know that tongue-in-cheek you said, this is in the aftermath of watching Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries speak for the better part of, 24 hours or however long he talked. I don't know how long it was.
Yeah.
But you said, "I wasn't really sure how to vote, but after watching Hakeem for 30 seconds, I'm firmly a yes." And thank you for being a yes. And Gloria Johnson, who I suppose represents parts of Knoxville over your way and in your district, said, "So by his own words, Tim didn't consider the 30,000 people in his district losing health care, or the thousands of additional kids in his district who will go to bed hungry. He was just mad they let the black man talk." And because
I saw that, I just didn't respond. She's going to the lowest common denominator, throwing nobody. Who cares? That is the stupidest, and that just shows you where they go, where the far left is. They've abandoned the middle class, the labor union people, and frankly, a lot of the inner city folks with that kind of garbage, because it doesn't serve anybody. She's hanging on by a thread. She knows it. They know it. All they're trying to do is sacrifice their middle-of-the-road Democrats because they got to have that far-left vote. And if they don't get that, their numbers will drop considerably, and they know it. Republican Party congressmen now, our approval rating is higher than it's been in a long time, maybe since Reagan. I don't know, because I was blasting everybody on Fox the other night, and the speaker sent me a new poll. And he was just kidding. He said, "Come on, don't be so hard on us." And I was like, "Well, we share some of the blame in all this by letting this stuff go down this path." But the truth is that she's just a far left, and she's. Well,
that's the only way she gets attention. But here, well, I don't want to give her too much. But here's what I did on social media, and I want to formally ask you on the show. I invite Gloria Johnson and Tim Burchett on my radio show at a time of their choosing, at any point where we can get you together. To have a discussion/debate on this issue. Would you be willing to do that?
Well, sure.
Okay.
There's no discussion, though, with these folks. Look, they're just going to try to ambush me, and they're just the far left. There is no – show me the numbers that say that I don't know how many, 30,000 of my constituents are going to be off of
it's just nonsense. They're just spewing out nonsense.
Total nonsense. They pull out these numbers, and nobody – contradicts them. You see it. It's just there's your talking points right there. MSNBC, CNN, CBS, ABC. They all follow that same line. But it goes back to they just don't like Trump. They don't like the fact that they no longer have control of people and the government, and they don't like the fact that nobody and they better understand that their ratings are dropping so fast that they're never going to get anything, and it's just. They'll never get it back because this internet, the young people, they're fed up with it. You saw Charlie Kirk at the University of Tennessee campus, and more kids turned out for him than he'd ever had. And, UT's kind of a hotbed of liberals if you look at the people that run the place.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's just we've got a lot of work to do.
Were you and I've been gone for 2 weeks repairing the shoulder, but I know I'm going back on old territory, but I want to hit a couple of hot points. Right. The Iranian deal, the bombing, obviously, call it threading the needle, call it what you will, but there were a lot of people concerned that we were inching, and I was one of them, concerned that we were inching toward a foreign entanglement that should not involve the United States of America.
Yep.
Donald Trump, master stroke, in my opinion. Yours?
100%. And he was concerned. I spent 2 hours with him and J.D. Vance on Thursday in the Roosevelt Room and then in the Oval Office. And that was a lot of the conversation, just what went on in that. And Trump and J.D. don't want to get in it. They don't need another world war. They knew what they had to do. They knew that Iran did. There was a lot of negotiations that went on behind the scenes, too. But the ability for them to thread that needle, as you said, and literally they drop a 2,000-pound bomb down a hole the size of half of a refrigerator door from 2,000 feet. It's like
it's that old it was that old Star Wars line, right? It's like shooting womp rats back home.
Yeah, well, it was something. It was something because that thing was. Can't talk about all of it because it was the president talking and stuff, but it was a very animated discussion and description of what went down on that. But that's why Trump did it. He didn't want World War III, and he couldn't go to the American public and have the Democrats try to stall it or worse, alert the enemy, which is what they would have done. And so he had to do what a leader does, and he's done it. And every time he does it, he just is he's masterful. He has not lost one yet. If you look at everything that he's done with the economy or the tariffs and all these things and the money that's coming in from that, he's hard to beat. And this was the top of the deal. I've met in a, I guess you call it secure briefing on the bombing and all that, and it wasn't just a couple of planes flying over. I mean, there was submarines involvement. And what you didn't hear, and I